Poddin My Noggin, hosted by CK Sims, creating a platform to elevate, educate, and heal by creating a space where people can share their stories of struggle, triumph, and redemption. CKS Media.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Poddin My Noggin. I'm your host, CK Sims. That never changes. But what does change is our guest every week. And this week, we are joined by Dr. Stephan Neff out of Auckland. Am I correct?
Close enough. Actually, Papamoa Beach, but it is in beautiful New Zealand. And yes, you're right. So officially, I'm beaming in from the future. And it's It's beautiful outside. So for those of you who wonder what the future will bring, it's sunshine. It's a nice, mild autumn morning here, or spring morning for you, and it's going to be amazing, the future.
Yes, well, I like that positivity. We definitely need that right now, for sure. Stefan, I want to make sure I'm saying that right, because so you have a lot of accolades going on over here. Just to name a few, you are a retired anesthesiologist.
That's right.
But now you're a functional medicine practitioner. Now we're going to get to that in a bit. You're an author, 3 times an author. Like there's a lot of stuff going on here.
Well, I'm easily getting bored. It's
well, okay, fair. That doesn't happen. But all of the stuff that you have listed here is actually, like, to me. So you're a certified hypnotherapist as well. Wow. Okay. Well, so you're like a cornucopia of, like, well-being, if you will.
Well, exactly. And this is the gift of post-traumatic growth. We all go through shit in our life, and whoever is running the show, if it is angels or aliens or supernatural beings, they really thought I'm a badass. I can take it. So they delivered heaps and heaps of trauma in my lifetime. And it allowed me to experiment. And in my early days, threw myself in exercise and into martial arts, because ultimately at an early age 13, I was the victim of a gang assault. And I ended up bringing the ringleader behind bars, and he threatened to kill me. And it was all these kind of sort of what you see in a film, I mean, B-grade movie kind of thing. But for me in the 80s, I thought that is real. And therefore, for the next 5 years after that assault, I did nothing but going to school and earning some money afterwards, and then training. So I became Rambo, literally, until the age of 18. And then I entered university. I was good at school, and because always I talking about external validation, once I tasted blood in the sense of the success of being the best in class, that was nice. So I think I became a workaholic long before I became an alcoholic later. And so external validation was there, and it was intriguing because there was external validation I sought, and I was preparing my body for this fight. And then the first year in university, I realized 3 things. Firstly, this ringleader will never ever find me. It was the day before the internet, and I was different town. No way that this guy would ever get to me. Secondly, I discovered girls. And thirdly, I discovered alcohol. And alcohol was a very, very beautiful thing for me to discover, because I had clearly had PTSD with hindsight, but I had never really been diagnosed. That was shortly after the Vietnam War. If you look into the history, it was the 80s. No one really talked about that. So therefore, I was left to my own devices. And I was living this martial arts warrior code. And then one day in my first year in university, beautiful day out, we sat down with two friends and had a beer together, and it was a warm summer in Germany. It was absolutely amazing. And suddenly I heard this laughter, and I looked around, and I thought, who's laughing so loud? And it was me. That laughter had come out of my chest. And it was the first time that dopamine washed over me in such a tremendous amount, triggered by all this realization. This huge flood came over me, and unfortunately it linked forever the relationship of alcohol and pleasantness, joy, happiness, those kind of things. So yeah.
That's interesting too, because so you said you were 13 when you were attacked by this gang.
Correct.
And through your testimony and actions, you were able to imprison this man. But however, yes, you were correct. The internet didn't really exist at this point in the 80s. But it would have still been there, though, right?
You
Like,
mean could he have gotten to me? Absolutely,
yeah,
yes.
I think the fear is
Oh, I
is
see what you mean. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's
Yeah, you're so
still
right.
there.
The fear was always there, but it was not fear. It was the realization. It was a numbers game, basically. Yes, could he find me? But this dude was a beer short of a six pack. He was not the brightest, the sharpest tool in the shed. So no. I was reasonably assured that I would be safe from that. And in all fairness, new things happened. I threw myself in my studies as a medical doctor. I changed from martial arts more towards dance, towards other things. The girls became a big part of my life. So it was actually a really beautiful time. Alcohol was my friend because I was shy. I mean, the initial assault knocked my teeth out, and you don't get permanent replacement until you're 18. So basically, throughout my teenagerhood, there was any day, any moment, one of these teeth kept falling out, kind of thing. And you can imagine, as a teenager, you do not smile a lot. And so for me to change that, or to actually, in the first instance, to have these inhibitions and then have alcohol that melts these inhibitions away, and you turn into this completely careless person that still had his wits together. That was always the amazing thing to me. You see sort of many people do really stupid things on the internet under the influence of alcohol. That really never occurred to me because I had that kind of warrior instinct in me. So there was the PTSD, but there was also the realization, oh, God. So, it is, I'm not the best singer, and I'm certainly not the best guitarist, but give me a few drinks, I bring the guitar out, and within minutes, there are girls swarming around you like moths around a flame, and it was that kind of thing. So suddenly, I was this interesting person, and it was beautiful. And alcohol was
once
really, really
again,
great then.
once again, external validation,
Oh,
right?
touche. Well,
Yeah.
also internal validation, because I had recently a guest on my show who quite nicely said an orgasm a day keeps the doctor away. And I must say, yes, I was living very healthily at that time with the help of alcohol. Because ultimately, you've got, I was disinhibited, but I was in control. That also covered my sexuality. I could have an erection and control that erection at a certain level of alcohol for an hour or two. Now, that is quite impressive to many women. And, there we were. So there are a lot of advantages to alcohol that we often forget in the initial thing. So it is often a gift to us, even if it is in the long run a poison. And we know nowadays that there is nothing healthy to alcohol. I want to say
No.
that immediately. There is the glass of red wine a day for heart protection is bullshit. That has been disproven. We know that there are at least 8, some people say 12 different cancers are linked to alcohol consumption, even at low levels. So all that is part and parcel. But you never know that. I certainly didn't know that when I was young. I was using it initially just to relaxation. But if more and more trauma comes and you don't learn new coping mechanisms, you don't learn those skills that are far less destructive and far more productive, such as, for example, meditation, such as, for example, fiercely protecting your sleep, good nutrition, all those foundations on which you really build mental health. If you don't pay attention to that, if you burn the candle on all ends, you pay the price. And if you then mix in poisons, in my case, the alcohol, many other people, all kind of other things that they put into their body for recreational purposes, they all take their toll. But we never know it when we are young. We never know it when new trauma comes and you're falling back onto these old coping mechanisms that once upon a time served you well.
No, I agree. So vodka was your choice.
Vodka was ultimately the thing that least smelled and therefore least gave you away. It was clear and you could actually put it into drinks and mix it and could gaslight your significant other, say, no, that's only ginger beer, darling. No. That's only ginger beer. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, you get the idea.
Yes. So, but while you were cultivating your alcoholism, you were becoming a doctor.
I was a doctor, and I was a very good one. I became a doctor. I then became an anesthetist. That's another 7 years of study on top of being a doctor. And then you do subspecialization. I went into pain medicine. That's another 2 years. And hyperbaric medicine. That's another, a year and a half. And so on. So I accrued all those accolades, but I worked hard, I played hard. I think that's fair to say.
And so the alcohol never interfered with that journey. Clearly.
Negative. No, negative. There was still a time when you're controlled, when you are using it to relax. But sooner or later, as I said, trauma has the magic of reappearing under different guises. And so sooner or later, I had far more trauma coming into my life. Slow rotting death of parents and financial pressures on me. Maybe a marriage that was always volatile and with hindsight was probably something that should have ended much earlier than it has. So there were so many things coming together. Yet I had by that time committed, for example, to my wife. I had, by the time we married, I said, nah, the wild dude, he is gone. Now I am forever loyal to you. And that core belief that I formed, that habit that I created, was actually poisonous with hindsight. We were not compatible. And indeed, some of my actions you could say I betrayed my wife, not with another woman, but probably with alcohol, probably with work, with other things. Was I there for her? Did I fulfill her needs? No. I didn't have the emotional intelligence to learn what her needs are. Neither did I have the emotional intelligence to know what are my needs. I was unable to actually formulate them. So was she. We were both broken from that point of view, and that made it really hard. Now, she finally found Jesus Christ, and with that she stopped drinking, but didn't go really through a kind of that growth that I was allowed when I stopped drinking 3 years later, because I threw myself into recovery. And then later on, with more trauma coming, I ended up learning more techniques, more recently the hypnotherapy, for example. And that was a beautiful thing, because hypnotherapy, for those of you with PTSD out there, hypnotherapy completely, 3 sessions of it and a discussion with this hypnotherapist took away 70% of my PTSD symptoms, which were persevering throughout my adult life. And it was beautiful to see. So I guess the big message there is actually help out there. There is hope out there. Sometimes we can't see it, and especially when we're in the darkness. And that again, Last year we finally separated, or a year before we finally separated. Last year we went through a nasty divorce, and as part of the divorce, I lost absolutely everything, and that was brutal. No, it was absolutely brutal, and I'm today, as we are speaking here in March 2025, I'm very grateful because this slow burning unhappy marriage is gone. I have been reduced to a very small carbon footprint, and that in its own right is incredibly traumatic, but also it allows you to grow again. It's basically like you prune a tree that has completely gotten out of shape and out of proportion. You can take 30% typically of the foliage off without actually harming the tree quite easily. In my case, it was a phoenix that had to burn to the ashes. But then again, there is a new phoenix arising, and that is the huge gift of post-traumatic growth. So for those of you out there who are going through a lot of shit at the moment and are thinking, wow, why the hell should I continue? Whatever it is that is happening in your life, it will continue. There are a few sayings that might sound like cliches, but they are actually true. Even the darkest hour is only 60 minutes. And the darkest moment in your night is just before dawn. Just as much as you might be being hit by a hit by a tsunami of shit. Let's call it what it is. It's not a little wave. It's a tsunami typically that hits you. Things come together to hit you hard. Every tsunami comes, every wave comes and then goes. So just try to swim on this wave. Try to keep your head above the water as good as you can. And then regroup and see, okay, what are my strengths? What can I rebuild? Is it worth rebuilding, or do I need to start to build from scratch? And it is possible. That applies to a new relationship. That applies to a new profession. So often we hang on to that old profession and we believe that, wow, I've done that job for 7 years, 10 years. I've given my life to that job. I could never, ever possibly switch careers. Well, you can. Sometimes you have to, due to sickness or due to an injury. How many builders and carpenters and plumbers have I seen in my years as an anesthetist who suddenly their shoulder was gone and they ended up with operation after operation, then a shoulder replacement, and they couldn't do their job anymore. So they had to switch. Okay, that is normal. So trauma is normal, and we are forced to change all the time. And it's like a muscle. It's basically something you can practice and you can prepare for. Most of us don't. Most of us find ourselves in a level of comfort where we are just sitting in this comfort zone. Now, if for those of you who can see me, imagine my fist is your comfort zone. And then there's sort of a zone around it where it's not comfortable, but it's not so bad that you clearly want to make change. That could be an unhappy marriage. That could be a frustrating job that you feel powerless to change. And then finally, there's a big area around there which is so painful for you that you have to make changes. So many of us are just sitting outside of our fist, are sitting in this uncomfortable zone, but we know what we know, and we are so afraid of the uncertain. So therefore, you don't make changes. And I think that is the shame, and that is the power of post-traumatic growth that is waiting for you out there. Once you actually make a decision and say, no, enough is enough. I have enough of my own feelings not being acknowledged or met, etc., in a relationship. This is a very powerful place to be, because in the first instance, you had to learn what are your feelings. Secondly, you then probably have to learn how to communicate them to the other person. So there is growth for you waiting for you, so that you can actually learn more about, let's say, love languages. Maybe do some partner counseling. Maybe invest in some simple means of getting closer to the other person. In other words, for example, I call it the 5-minute gardener. Imagine that you've got a garden, and from now on you decide every morning, every day, it doesn't matter really which time, you go out there into the garden and spend 5 minutes, exact 5 minutes, never less, never more. But every day you do that. After a week, you see a change in the garden. After a month, your family says, well, garden looks nice. And after 3 months, you have got bus tours coming along and will say, wow, best garden in town. That's 5 minutes. Now imagine you do that in your relationship. You dedicate 5 minutes to your partner, and in a meaningful way for your partner, not for you, for your partner. So you need to figure out, what does your partner want? How does he tick? You can say 20 times I love you and wash us up over him because he's not auditory, but he likes acts of service. So it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
From now on, you make him or her a cup of tea, or you put a washing away that you normally don't. Little things like that. And suddenly there will be a big change in your relationship with you investing just a small amount of time. It's cumulative interest. And those kind of things you can do with every aspect of your life. And I think, coming full circle, in the past I relied on alcohol. Nowadays I rely on habits that I have formed. These habits really affect all the pillars of your life. That is not just like in the past, throwing myself in my work and neglecting my marriage, neglecting my physical body, being morbidly obese at one stage, not exercising at all, my nutrition probably not being great. And nowadays I have changed so many things in these pillars so that my foundation is far stronger. And therefore I was able to get through this incredibly traumatic 2024 without falling apart,
And
without
going back to alcohol.
worse. I mean, there's at some stage in your life, you come to a point where the voices in your head are saying, come on, man, you're fat, you're 58, you are unlovable, you're a failure. Look, here you are, with failed marriage, failed everything. Who are you? Why do you want to continue, you piece of shit? You know, the
Mm,
negative self-talk that we are so
yes,
good
of
in?
course.
Exactly. We've got about 80,000 thoughts a day, 60 to 80,000. Of those 60 to 80,000, 80% are negative. That's coming from a time in our past where we always were looking out for the saber-toothed tiger, where we're always looking out for the danger, which is great. But there's always this fear, this a lot of behaviors that are deriving from that. And
Mm.
this negativity, is one thing. That's the emotional intelligence, where you need to learn to cross-examine those thoughts and to actually say, am I a failure? Let's look at the evidence for that. And then very quickly you have to say, well, actually, no, I'm not a failure. I failed in that marriage. And these are the reasons, but I've already rectified them. I already can talk about it without actually getting angry or sad. I've actually, dealt with it. That's beautiful. That's strong.
So it's so interesting because, like, I'm listening and you speak very eloquently. So like you're talking about right now, cognitive restructuring is what you're explaining, right? It's
Mm,
the act of reprogramming one's thoughts.
absolutely.
And I loved how you talked about your pillars and habits, which, if you want to, for people at home who are watching or listening, if you really want to take what he said, which was beautifully spoken and articulate, and break it down in a fraction to its smallest form, it comes out to consistency is key. Showing up for yourself habitually will establish your pillars, will strengthen your
Mm,
pillars, change your whole life, as you said, right?
mm,
It's a it's a beautiful thing. And what's also really beautiful is, I like, a lot of what you're saying is actually resonating. So I didn't have a wife or go through a nasty divorce, but I've been at a point in my life where the negative self talk almost won, right? But it was the my habits. I was looking out always. I spent my life looking outside, saying, oh, it's that's fault, or there's something against me, or there's a universe, or pissed off God, or whatever the situation may be. It was always like external. It was never me accepting that I'm the problem. It is me, technically, right? And looking inwards and saying, okay, well, if I'm the problem and it's within my control, how do I change that? And that's that. Yeah. So I love that. So showing up for yourself habits. Yes. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back.
Partner today with CK Sims and Poddin My Noggin to get in front of an audience that cares. You will be supporting mental health stories, tales of resilience, and uplifting content, aligning your brand with bringing goodness, authenticity, and kindness front and center. This spot could be yours. Do you have a story of struggle and resilience? One that you want to share with others and possibly help someone through their own struggles? Find the link in the show description and fill out the guest form today.
Welcome back, everybody. Before the break, we were talking to Dr. Stephan Neff, but Stefan for short, a retired anesthesiologist, functional medicine practitioner. Lots of accolades. We're not going to go through them because we'll take up the remainder of the show. Before we break, though, we were talking about your experience at 13 and going through life, and then your marriage, and how it was the result of you strengthening your pillars over time through habits that prevented you from falling back on old ways through your treacherous 2024. And I had no idea it was so recent. This
Well, trauma continues, CK.
Always,
Trauma,
yes.
so isn't it? And it's just, and it's not a pissing contest. Each and every one of us is going through hard times, and sometimes a kind of disgusted glance of a coworker can be hugely traumatic to you, or something that you consider maybe as an act of sexual abuse, someone touching your breast as a woman, that can be a huge trauma for you. Or it can be that you are involved in a motor vehicle accident that killed another person. And that, this is not a pissing contest. Trauma is there for all of us. And unfortunately, about half of us have got core beliefs laid down in our early childhood that don't suit us so well. The fear avoidance, the attachment styles, all those kind of things. These are things that all run in the subconscious, in the default mode network. And it is so important that we actually understand those things. There's in functional medicine, the reason that I got so interested in that 2-3 years ago, actually probably started 7 years ago, because I was tired and I was fatigued, and because I was working bloody 16 hours. No surprise with hindsight, my sleep was shit. And so I went to a nutritionist, a holistic dude I held in high esteem, and said, look, here's my money, let's do some testing and let's actually figure out what's going on. And indeed, I had leaky gut, I had a number of things that were not great. We changed simply my diet at that time. Below me, 3 months later, my energy levels were completely different. And when I say my diet, so we added nutraceuticals in there. We actually gave my body what it needed at that time. My goodness, my energy levels changed. My sleep got better. Little things like aches and pains that I had beforehand. I had a nasty achillotendinitis that sort of really hobbled me. And my goodness, that was 18 months there. I underwent experimental therapies and they didn't do anything. 3 months later, that was gone. Inflammation in my body was gone. Little old shoulder injury from the past, gone. Smelly feet, gone. It was absolutely strange. That was 7 years ago. And then I was still working far too hard and lots of other chaos happening. And then really 2, 3 years ago, I said, well, actually, I'm heading now mid-50s. Maybe I should I paid a piper because I had lived a rough life, I guess, in my earlier years. My father, biological father, died of his sixth heart attack in his 60s. I thought, oh God, okay, come on. So I paid for a calcium score, which is a CT scan of your chest, where we look at the amount of calcium that is located in the arteries that are supplying the blood to the heart. And lo and behold, that score came back as that of a baby, 0. And I thought, hang on, that can't be. And then I realized how powerful taking care of yourself can be, and how much you can undo damage that has been done through maybe decades beforehand. And that got me intrigued. And then I started formal training in functional medicine about 2, 3 years ago. And it was just such an insight, so beautiful. So nowadays I have got the studies, and when we talk about the pillars, we can actually show you that indeed, for example, in a negative sense, sedentary lifestyle is as bad as you smoking a pack a day. So
What if you do both?
yeah. Oh, here you go. Then that's a triple whammy because it's synergistic. So you don't just get 1+1. So here you go for an example with that. On the flip side, we have got studies that show where we can go, and there's a whole thinking out there, the longevity movement. People believe that you should be easily living to 100 and maybe 120, 130, 150 years by actually adhering to habits that create these strong pillars in life. And I have to say, the more I practice that, the more I believe that, because my own body is so different. I have lost about 30 kilogram. There is still this, I mean, at the moment I'm still going through a huge amount of stress. So there is still a cortisol steal going on. There's still things in my metabolism going on where I'm not surprised that I'm struggling to lose more pounds. But
And I
my,
think, not to
yeah,
cut you off, I think that you would have to cut off all like modern day technology to remove all that cortisol.
true. That is true. I, who could? Who would? No. I think we need to be realistic. You need to choose what you eat and what you take in. And when I put nutrition now into a wider frame, I would also include what do you listen to or watch on social media? What
Mm.
news do you watch? What kind of environment or what kind of people do you surround yourself with? If you have got only negative naysayers and alarmists and things like that, my God. If you really still listen to the mainstream media, oh my God. And so on and so on. So be far more selective in what you listen to. In the past, I'm a history buff, for crying out loud. I want to know what geopolitics are, and I live and breathe history. And history means right now, politics included. But what I do see is that 80-90% are information campaigns that we are exposed to. There is so much bullshit out there. You nowadays really need to, if you really want to still listen to mainstream media, then please scan the headlines of, let's say, CNN, BBC, Deutsche Welle, RT, Russian television, China. So at least get the headlines of all the propaganda. And then you see what Al Jazeera to get a bit of the extremist view there, and then put it all together and say, okay, I will never get that half an hour back because likely it's not affecting you whatsoever.
Well,
So
I think that's interesting that you bring that up, right? Because I have noticed more so late, like within the last year, 2 years, there is just you cannot look at anything on the internet and actually just accept that as that's a factual article that was written. It could be, but it's a dangerous game. And
no,
the
no.
situation has now caused us, we have to disseminate our own information and fact check.
Absolutely.
And but people
Absolutely.
take things at surface value, right? So they see a headline, it's sensational, they accept that as their truth, and then this is impacting
Yeah.
their mental health, their physical health,
A
all of
good,
these things.
absolutely. And from a doctor's point of view, coming back to functional medicine, 2-3 days ago, I saw the headline, we've got scientific evidence, low-carb diets increase the risk of colon cancer. And I thought, huh? And I looked into that article, and it was a sort of not a scientific article. It was just sort of the thing that you see on Google that is displayed to you. And I thought, that's heap of bullshit. And I looked into it, and it's clear that the person had not had a background in medicine or in nutrition, and they lumped in the low carb and low fiber all into one thing. So we know that a diet or a food plan that is low in fiber is not great for you, because much of the beauty of our body is actually sitting in our gut. It's 95% of the 95% of serotonin and 50% of dopamine are created in our gut, not in our brain. And there's a very active gut-brain axis going. So if you talk about mental health, then talk about nutrition. Talk about bringing some protein in, some vitamin D, some cofactors like magnesium, selenium, zinc. Now we're talking. Now we're getting you out of the doldrums, as far as out of the dark mood. So that is what is important. And these bacteria in there, they need food, but they don't need a donut. What they need is fiber. That's what they like. So that's why we say eat your greens. That's why we say eat the rainbow. There's a good reason for that. So coming back to this misleading headline there, no, low-carb diets do not cause colon cancer. If low-carb means low-fiber diets increase the risk of colon cancer, hell yes. But don't just throw things together as they see fit, because you can have a high-fiber diet with relatively low carbohydrates involved.
Yes, I've
And
done
so,
it.
well, see, there you go. So therefore, it's so important. So therefore, if you just go by the headline, you're completely misled, and potentially
Absolutely.
in a dangerous way. And so it's the same thing again and again and again. It is how many, I mean, if you, Men's Health or all these magazines there, inevitably you will find something. Beer is good for your recovery after sport because it has a little bit of this or a little bit of that. And you still see the myth of the red wine being good for your heart, or white wine is good for, shit like that. It's
I think
basically
it's all propaganda. It's always been
absolutely.
propaganda, and it's only recently,
Yeah.
in this new like the last 10 years, that people are starting to realize how much of it we're fed on a
Yeah.
regular basis. Now, there's what I find the most upsetting, though, is that there are papers, magazines, news places that they're not even trying to hide it anymore.
Yeah.
It is just from another planet type reporting, and I'm like, I see the headline, and I'm like,
Yeah.
really, really. So, but yes. So you were talking about nutrition. I like the nutrition thing, and then broaden the nutrition scope to be what you're taking in as well, like what you're listening, what you're watching, what you're reading, who you're surrounding yourself by. I have a allergic reaction to negative people. I don't even know what, but I wasn't always that way. It took the change and to focus on healing and to bring myself, strengthen my pillars, if you will, to get to a point where I have a very close circle of friends, very small, and I'm very selective about who comes into my environment, because nothing, and anybody who's listening can write this in your little black books. I don't know anybody who has a little black book, but
I've got a red book.
nothing is worth your peace. Nothing.
Having said that, you were saying, just 1 second, you were talking your little black book. I've got, mine is red and black.
It is red and black. There you go.
But I so recommend you all to actually get yourself a little book like that. Yes, your laptop can certainly collect data, and so does your phone. But in reality, there's a power in you writing things down by hand. So
Yeah.
write it in your black book, because it affects a complete different part of your brain when you write things by hand compared with writing it in the computer or tapping it in shortcode onto your phone. So you're actually, with journaling and writing things down, you take back power. And that's one of the many things that I find incredibly beneficial. Now, from a high achiever and perfectionist point of view, I always wrote to-do lists. But my
Yes.
to-do lists in the past, Superman on speed would have not been able to do just a fraction of what I was putting on my to-do list for the day. And so at the end of the day, I would look at it and say, you didn't even do 3 things. You're a failure.
Yeah.
So, no, nowadays, create lists. Absolutely. Hold yourself accountable, but create win lists. Create lists that you actually write things down, smaller, more manageable, more achievable goals, and then tick them off. Or I sometimes, when I'm in quite a negative mode, when the voice is in my head telling me what a failure I am, I literally write a little win next to washing up. Then maybe I have tackled emails which I knew wouldn't be good. But I've done them. I would write a big win, WIN, next to it, and tick it off. You're actually celebrating wins. And that's how you get a gamification of your life happening. Okay, so it's not just for the little children which have star charts. Okay, you should have your own star chart.
I share something with you, and I will recommend this as in addition to what you just said. So I am the same. I have to have a notebook. I have to um, go like write my things down, and they're usually very realistic. And I sometimes I'll make little notes for a day, or it's notes for the week. These are the things I have to tackle this week. Now, let me tell you something that I do in addition to what you just said. I don't do the big win. I'm gonna actually incorporate that. But if while I'm going through life and I'm referencing my notebook to see that I'm still on track, if something happens and I do it, then I write it on my list and then I check it off. Because just because I didn't think about it before doesn't mean it's
Absolutely,
not a part
absolutely.
of something I accomplished, right?
I love it.
So yeah, I it's my like sort of positive
Yeah.
reinforcement to myself. I'm
Oh,
like, you know what, you
absolutely. Because how often do you end up in the evening think, well, what did I do today? Look, you bloody failure. You were lying there on the ground. Well, I love to lie down when I work. So you were lying on your tummy and you did fuck all, basically. And with me creating exactly those lists where you say, actually, I did email, I did Podmatch, I did this, I did that, I did that. There might be 20, 25 things there that I actually have achieved, and things that came out of the blue I immediately dealt with. And by the
yep,
way, I did 2 kilometers of swimming. And by the way, I actually, when I went up the stairs, I said, stuff it. I go 10 times up the stairs because I want to work out my quadriceps. I actually did exercise snacking during the day. A great, great thing. I want to throw that in here before we get sidetracked with something
did
else.
you say exercise snacking?
That is correct. Exercise snacking. We all know that activity is good, and there are recommendations out there. You should do maybe half an hour of walking a day, or things like that. Certain step counts, 10,000 is sort of a good step count to achieve. The reality is, yes, this is all very good, and people try to have a busy day and then they go for a walk. It's beautiful. You're out in nature. It's all great. But for some of us, there might be better solutions there. Because how often do you stand, or are there little moments of time during the day that you have where you do nothing? Where you might be waiting for an elevator, or where you might be waiting for the kettle to boil, or where you might, etc., etc. So there was a beautiful study recently done where they compared sedentary lifestyle, basically doing nothing, compared with a half an hour walk, compared with every 45 minutes doing 10 squats. Now, they found that the squats were as efficient and as good for blood sugar control as the walk in the evening. So I have increasingly incorporated that into my day. Initially, I set myself timers every 45 minutes. Beep, beep, beep. Okay, so I did 20 push-ups and I did 10 squats and just got my heart rate a bit up and then continued. And it's actually very easy to incorporate. When I get up, make myself a coffee, then I will do leaning push-ups on the table and do 10 squats. End of the story. It's just part of me getting a coffee. And it's those kind of things. These are called exercise snacks or activity snacks. And that is an absolute perfect way of incorporating exercise into your day. There is no excuse for you not to exercise. And if you hate the word exercise, then call it activity. Because there's no reason that you could not wash up. And whilst you're washing up, dancing. And when I was a young man, I did the washing up in a kung fu position, so low down, sort of crouching tiger kind of thing. So I was doing a maintained squat, so to speak, whilst I was washing up. You can. It's only up to you how you incorporate it. You can dance, you can but do it regularly. Make yourself activity snacks, and that works so perfect. Also, if you want to lose. One more tip. Just before you eat, do 10 squats and 10 push-ups, leaning push-ups against the wall. Doesn't matter, but 10 squats. What you do is you actually use up some of your glycogen, so that the storage of glucose in your muscle. So the muscle says, ooh, we need more. So now, just before you're eating, you do this exercise, and now the muscle is opening up its receptors, say, come on, where's the sugar? Where's the sugar? So what you eat in doesn't go straight to your fat, it goes straight to your muscle. So you prevent weight gain.
I like it. So I love all that. I do want to address people at home, however, and see if there was anybody else who is just a little disappointed that there wasn't food involved in the exercise snack. I was like, there's some brand new technology coming out of Auckland here with like, this is like, you just squat when you eat and you can eat anything or something. But I agree with everything you're saying. And it's funny, I walk 5K every morning on a treadmill because that just works for me. But I'm always, because I work sitting down, I'm always, when I'm doing something, doing some weird movement. I look bananas if you don't know me. I'm always like moving around when I'm standing up because it's just like, I'm like, ooh, I gotta, do something because I'm sitting all day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's great advice. So I want to, so you have your own podcast as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's called
Neff Inspiration, indeed.
There we go. And now this is a question for you that's actually, probably I would only ask it. Are you actually from New Zealand?
Negative. No, it's German.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Yeah, I thought so, because I was like, I was like listening to you talk, and I'm like, doesn't sound New Zealand, but I'm like, I don't want to just be like.
No. I come from Germany, but I lived around the world, and so yes, I'm truly cosmopolitan, and
Perfect.
That's the way I love it.
I want to let everybody know as well. You can find out more about Stefan on. Give me 1 second.
Neffinspiration.com.
Website. What is it?
Neffinspiration.com.
Oh, it's not listed here. Neff Inspiration. So NEFF
Inspiration.com. All in one word. And you will find everything. You find links to my books. You find links to my show. I'm trying to do every day. I try to put an information article out there. And yeah, it's a wealth of information there.
Love it. And that's the other thing I want to make sure we mention as well. So, like, you have your first book was My Steps to Sobriety.
Mm-hmm, indeed, which has just been released in third edition.
Okay.
There you go.
That.
exactly.
Okay. So now I
Yeah,
want to
we're
see. I'm
flipped.
hoping that you have close to you, Esme,
The mindful
the
mouse.
mind. Do you have that close
Yes,
by?
I have. Bear with me. I'll get you. I forgot to bring little Esme out. Esme, the mindful mouse.
How?
It's a
I don't.
children's book, and it is. I'm a photographer at heart, so we went into the beautiful redwood forest here and created these pictures. One, my co-author is Belinda Manna, and she has created all these furry animals that we then placed into the forest, and they're having their adventures. And Esme, as a little mouse, she's very vivacious and bouncy. And with that, living her life to the fullest, she often does silly things to her friends. And her silly things, not by accident, but she runs around and steps on someone's foot, or she messes up someone's bed in the forest, and they get upset with her and they're angry with her. And she is wondering, am I a bad mouse or have I done a bad thing? And
Mm,
it is this beautiful journey of her being guided by this mystical caterpillar. And she learns at the end, when all her friends who were angry at individual times all come together and give her a hug and tell her that they love her and want to be with her. They tell her, no, you're not a bad mouse, but you have done a bad thing. So
and there's a difference.
exactly. And I strongly, strongly believe that it's much easier to create strong humans than to repair broken grown-ups. So therefore, if you can actually start earlier with things like meaningful conversations around topics of mental wellness,
Yes,
let's create mental wellness. Let's create strong beings. Let's
and
not
especially
focus.
in boys.
Oh, please,
Especially in
absolutely,
boys.
exactly. So
And then you have Depression Lied to Me Too is another book that you've written.
that is
One
correct.
last question, because you're a fascinating individual. There's so much here that you've written that I wish we could have unpacked, but go to neffinspiration.com and you will learn about it all. All of these beautiful drawings, it looks
Hmm?
like behind
This
you.
the trunks. Oh, behind me. So no, that is at the moment. I'm after divorce. I'm living in a apartment that is that of my friend, and what you've got there is Paris. So Arc de Triomphe, and you've
But are
got
they?
the Eiffel Tower, Tour de Eiffel. There you go. So that is just a print of various things, but it's ideal as a background for recordings. So
Yeah,
as
they're gorgeous.
oh, thank you. So as always, so and in all between you and me, behind there is the toilet door. So in reality, is you create your future, and sometimes you have to put a bit of lipstick on a pig. That's absolutely fine. Whatever darkness you're going through, do your best right now to actually help yourself. And that might be that you just give yourself a huge hug. For those of you who don't know the technique, it's called havening. And I want to leave you with that. What I'm doing for those of you listening and not watching, so I've just given myself literally a big hug. I'm reaching around my shoulders. And I like to close my eyes and squeeze as hard as I can. Some people sort of stroke the arms. Doesn't work for me. For me, it's a big bear hug. I squeeze as hard as I can. Close my eyes. Imagine that broken person. Could be the little child in you, could be a younger version of you. And I give this younger version a huge hug and say, Stefan, I love you. You're gorgeous. You've gone through so much crap, and you're still standing. Look at you. You're an amazing being. Wow, I'm so proud of you. I love you, Stefan. I love you. And these 10, 15 seconds, I have released my own dopamine. That's
Hmm.
basically as if someone gives you a huge hug. So someone has given that person in me a big hug, and it was just myself. I have showed myself radical self compassion. I've showed myself self love. And it's such a beautiful, humbling feel. I actually feel a bit warm and fuzzy now. So it's the dopamine
Beautiful
that has been
and
released,
humbling and
isn't it?
life altering.
Absolutely. So, guys, there
It
is
is
hope. There is help out there. And please, please, please don't give up. It is, there will be a future. There's a future waiting out there for you. And actually, may I say, there is probably a sense behind it all. There's probably a purpose for you there. The trauma that you're experiencing right now is there for a reason. Because it's meant to make you stronger. It's meant to change you. It's meant to make you a better person, a better soul. So do not give up and learn from every teacher who comes into your life. And sometimes these lessons are painful.
Thank you very much. If you want to learn more about Dr. Stephan Neff, head over to neffinspiration.com. That's NEFF inspiration.com. I will link it in the description as well, so it's easy to find. Thank you, Stefan, for being on the show today. It was a pleasure.
It was an honor and privilege. And thank you to you for bringing out this beautiful platform where we can have open and honest and authentic conversations. That is what is needed in nowadays time. So thank you. My gratitude is there with you.
Thank you. Everyone at home, get out there and live your wildest dreams, and I'll see you next time.
For media and sponsorship inquiries, email info@cksims.com or visit cksims.com and fill out the contact form. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. A new episode airs every Saturday. CKS Media.